Welcome to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast, hosted by Dawn Tura, CEO and President of SIG.
Well, folks, welcome back to the podcast series. I am so excited to have a new friend in the studio today, someone who I just got to know probably about 5 months ago, hearing a little bit of buzz for probably close to a year. But I'm going to introduce you to Rajul Zaparte, who is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Zip. And do you go by ZIP or Zip?
Zip.
Zip. That's the way we keep referring to you. So I'm glad we have that right. So as a co-founder and CEO of Zip, previously you led the search product and platform teams at Airbnb. And Rajul dropped out of Harvard at 17 to start Flightcar, which raised $40 million in capital and grew to 180 employees. Flightcar was then acquired by Mercedes-Benz in 2016. Seriously, Rajul? I did not know that about you.
Yes, this is company number 2 for me, but a very different business than car sharing at the airport, for sure.
Wow, that is amazing. But before we get started, I'm going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. When we return, we're going to hear more from Rajul Zaparte.
What is SIG University? We are an inclusive, internationally recognized university whose mission is to advance the procurement profession while enabling students to transform their careers through our world-class certifications. SIG University offers industry-recognized certifications programs, each offering a unique set of competencies and skills that sourcing and risk professionals need to be successful. The programs provide advanced training in subjects like strategic sourcing, supplier management, third-party risk management, intelligent automation, and more. SIG University is committed to academic excellence, which is why our students are trained alongside an international cohort, engage in discussion forums, and learn from senior practitioner faculty who leverage their deep industry experience with real-world case studies. Why SIG University? It was created originally at the request of SIG members. We knew there was a lot of training out there, but nothing designed around the ever-evolving skills and competencies that the modern sourcing and risk professional needs. The program was created through collaborating with dozens of industry experts to create a curriculum that is bold, fresh, and applicable to this day and age. If you're looking to advance your knowledge and your career, join us at SIG University.
So Rajul, that is an amazing story. So tell me a little bit about you. Obviously, you've got an incredible entrepreneurial spirit, but 17, seriously, you started your first company? So tell me where you went from there.
Yeah, no, of course. No, it was a long time ago now, but you know, I grew up in New Jersey and would constantly drive to the Newark airport, right? And you would see on the side of the 95, on one side, you've got thousands of cars that people are parking and paying money to have them sit there. And then on the other side, there's thousands of Hertz cars that are being rented out, right? And it's just so inefficient. And you know, that really struck me. And that turned into Flightcar, which was a car sharing company. And anyways, after that experience, worked at Airbnb for some time. And, you know, as just a product manager working in technology, one of the biggest problems that I faced was, you know, as an end user, if I need to buy something, what's the one place that I'm supposed to go to kick off that request? And what I found out is there is no one place, right? Legal is in the CLM, IT is in a ticketing solution. You know, of course, there's a procure to pay solution somewhere in the mix. And, you know, unfortunately, procurement has to track all the stuff and manually shepherd these, you know, employees and requests through this sort of convoluted process. And you know, that was sort of eye-opening for me as an end user. And that's really what led to my co-founder, Lou, and I starting Zip.
All right. So tell our audience a little bit about Zip.
Yeah. So Zip provides really one front door experience for any employee at the organization that needs to kick off any sort of purchase request. Everything in Zip is no code config. So you can ask the right conditional intake, right? Like, hey, you're buying software, Rajul. Do you know what types of data you're sharing? And based on how you answer, here's a crystal clear visual workflow of what is sequential, what is parallel across all the cross-functional teams like legal and IT and security and finance. And when everything is said and done, we connect into your ERP or P2P to create a PR or a draft purchase order and then do a handoff. And so we're really solving for, what we call the intake to procure part of the life cycle that's really sort of gone neglected and unfortunately has been very manual to date.
No, and it's so true, and I often tell people, we're technology agnostic, at SIG, but I have told everybody that there is no suite that is best in class in every aspect. And you're so right. I mean, intake has it was a step, you stepped over it, almost like a dead body. It's there, you have to deal with it and just keep moving on. So I guess that's why you got the attention of Spend Matters. And folks, if you don't know, they are a Future 5 provider awarded last fall. So tell us, what does it mean to be a Future 5 with Spend Matters?
No, I mean, first of all, it's very humbling, and we're so happy and thankful to be included as part of the Future 5, and more than anything, we're really excited that it's really sort of a sign that more and more sort of procurement leaders and champions are really thinking about the employee experience, the end user experience, and really valuing that the role of procurement has changed from just being sort of maybe historically sort of the spend police to being a lot more strategic and a lot more about sort of business speed and delivering assurance to the business, because those are sort of the values that we stand for and that we help our champions with. And so it's just great to see the function and the sort of thinking evolving.
Yeah. Were you surprised when you guys were nominated as one of the Future 5?
We certainly were. No, we were surprised and also, of course, very excited.
So what year did you start Zip?
So we started Zip in 2020.
Wow.
So right at the beginning of the pandemic, actually.
Yeah. And to be named a Future 5 in only a year, that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, it's now 2 years, but still it's been quick.
Wow. That is amazing. So in 2 sentences, what sets your technology apart from the others?
I think the real difference is one, just such a strong focus on the end user experience, right? Unfortunately, a lot of systems out there, there are guides and there's training and there's all this like user and change management stuff you have to do to go live. And it's because a lot of those tools were built only for procurement to use them, where, sure, if you have a buyer, you can spend 3 hours training them, but you can't spend 3 hours training every single employee at your company on how to request something. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so Zip is really focused on the end user experience. And, we go live with no training of any kind required. The employee just simply clicks on the Zip tile in their SSO, and that's it. They just follow everything. It's pretty obvious after that. So that's like sort of the, first kind of core thing. And then the second is that we really capture, like we think of Zip as sort of the orchestration layer across all of the cross-functional teams like legal and IT and security that need to be involved. And we let those teams, continue working in, legal in their CLM or IT in ServiceNow or Jira or wherever. So we can sort of, the end user and procurement can see the overall process, but different teams are enabled to go work in the solutions that they know and love. There's really nothing else out there that solves this problem that way. So
you integrate with all other technologies, I'm assuming.
We do with nearly every major ERP or procure to pay system, a number of CLMs, all the major ticketing solutions, and then GRC solutions as well.
Wow. Okay. So obviously you solved a problem that you guys identified, but what are you looking at for what other trends are happening in procurement these days?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think one, we're starting to see a lot more emphasis around employee experience, and someone described this to me as sort of the quote unquote the best worst deal, because what's happening is that there's more sort of decentralization of buying occurring today than ever before, right? Because there's more people across the organization, whether you're a company that's whether you're a tech company or a healthcare company or a company that makes physical goods, more people across the board are buying more software, they're buying more services. And you need to, if the systems and the process are not intuitive and easy, then what happens is human nature, you sort of put off entering the process until later. And then now procurement and sourcing can't be strategic because it's too late. And so if you make that right path, sort of the happy path, then what we see is that procurement and sourcing get looped in much, much earlier, and then it can actually enable the business versus, unfortunately being seen as blockers. And so that's really what we care a lot about. We want to make the procurement leaders and champions we work with look like superheroes.
So we hear all the time that digital transformation is what every organization is either going through, says that they've already accomplished, or something that's on their roadmap. Do you feel that your tool is integral to this digital transformation?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, if you had to close your eyes and open them, and it's now 2027, right, or 2032, 5 or 10 years from now, like certainly buying is going to become even more decentralized than it is today, and delivering assurance and compliance to the business is going to increase as part of the core responsibilities of the procurement function, right? For example, hey, we've got this large, data security team at our company. But how do we know that 100% of every single software purchase we're making is actually going through that team? Most organizations we talk to really struggle to be able to answer that question. And it's because data security uses its own system and legal uses its own system. And there's a P2P, but that's for financial approvals. And so, there's no other way to sort of solve this problem with an auditable record. And that is, the need for that is only going to increase, in my view, over time.
So so what we're hearing a lot of also is that there's a talent shortage. Does this help streamline the work for procurement? Does it take steps out of it? Does it get rid of some transactional piece? How are you helping with the fact that we're short workers these days?
Yeah, it is incredibly hard to hire today. And the way I think about it, right, is that like if you think about the type of person that's like a great category manager or great sourcing manager, that type of person, and then the type of person that like is a great like project manager that like checks on the status of every single request and follows up with people and takes great notes and like super detail oriented. Like those are actually like two different types of people that you would hire for. And I think, like the analogy I use is it's like if you hire a surgeon and then they spend 80% of their day washing floors, that is a very poor use of their time, right? And so if you can actually automate a lot of this like back and forth and manual project management stuff, then you're really sort of unfettered and able to like hire the right type of person for, delivering sourcing events and projects and things like that. And they can spend their time on the much more strategic stuff. And that's how I really think about it.
Well, and I always tell people, smart people don't want to do dumb work. That surgeon doesn't want to wash the floors, and our sourcing people don't want to be doing transactional manual processes. It's not going to excite you. It's not going to attract me to your company, and it's certainly not going to retain me. So I think you hit the nail on the head that by getting rid of all of this transactional and truly non-value added work and automating it, we're going to attract and retain better talent, overall in our organizations. So you're definitely filling a niche that we need. So congratulations on that. So a common response, though, when you're evaluating technology is that people and process are just as important as the tools. So did you go into this with the mindset that you were removing the friction from the people and process side, or did you go into it designing a tool and then figured out that you were helping people and process? Was it chicken, egg, chicken? How did you do it?
No, great question. And the truth is, all of those things have to sort of work in tandem and unison, and sort of you can't do one without the other, right? And I think one of the biggest sort of investments we've made into Zip is we've actually started to build, and we now have best practice templates based on segment and based on company size, and so we have a lot of companies we work with that are public companies, for example, where they don't really know what the right process should be. And if you think about it, it's amazing. You have all these different sort of teams and different organizations that are all trying to build up their processes from first principles when they don't need to be from first principles, because generally speaking, most companies in any given segment operate, 75, 80% kind of the same way. And so we've built best practice templates around intake questions, conditionality, what sorts of answers to which types of questions trigger, for example, security or IT reviews or legal review or, whatever the case might be. And that helps people get going much, much faster. And so we've started to, think about this and sort of deliver to folks that we work with, not just software, but actually sort of built in guidance and best practice around process too, because at the end of the day, you can't do one without the other.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So you found a problem and you solved it. What other procurement hurdle or challenge are you observing right now? Is there anything else that you're working on?
Yeah, well, one of the sort of increasing focuses that seems to be out there today, which is awesome, is around ESG and sort of supplier diversity, and so we've also as part of Zip now we have a partnership with Dun and Bradstreet, so that when any given sort of request, let's say for a new vendor, right, comes in or there's a sourcing request, directly within Zip we can sort of pull for example supplier diversity or other types of risk and other data. So that procurement and then the requester in the business is clear visibility and say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should actually work with this party and not maybe not that party, and can also go track my sort of what percentage of my spend is with diverse suppliers and so forth, in sort of one way versus having to rely on yet another manual process somewhere to go check that information and store it. But that's certainly been a trend that we've been seeing.
Okay, so how did you get from your flight cars to Airbnb to knowing this much about procurement? Help me bridge that gap. I'm really curious. Obviously, you're brilliant, but where did all
that?
Well, the fact that you got into Harvard and decided to drop out first, God bless your parents for not killing you for doing that. But right now I'm facing a very similar situation with one of my children. So maybe I need your parents for a little bit of therapy for me. But how did you gain all of your procurement expertise? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So, it's funny, but 3 or 4 years ago, if you had, when I worked at Airbnb, if you had asked me what's a PO, I couldn't have told you because I didn't know. Right. Why would I? And that's sort of the point, right? Because that's not my job. I don't work in finance. I don't work in procurement at the time. Right. I worked, as a product manager, working with engineers and designers on Airbnb.com search. And when you I think a lot of the times, a lot of software companies out there don't think about the end user. And the truth is, if you win the end user experience, which is where we do by far the best, then you make everything else easier and you make procurement look like a champion. You make everything downstream easier. And the truth be told, I was just frustrated enough and so confused about the process. And I worked in tech, right? I figured I work on technology and software products. If I can't figure it out, then that means a lot of other people also can't figure it out. And sort of just went down the rabbit hole. And it just, as I sort of unearthed this and spoke to a lot of, procurement leaders and some of our early customers, it just became so clear that there's a gap here and that people are doing all this stuff manually. And that's why I'm passionate about this, because I had the problem myself. And then, obviously you learn a lot through that experience.
So tell me, who are the other co-founders?
So my co-founder, I have one other co-founder. His name is Lu Cheng, and Lu's awesome. Lu spent the last 7 years also at Airbnb, a lot longer than I was there, and was the leader of engineering for one of the 4 business units at Airbnb called Airbnb Experiences. So he managed about 100 engineers and data scientists there.
Wow. Okay. So you had that kind of background, the data scientists, the engineering, all of that coming together when you guys co-founded.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of our engineers come from experiences in sort of consumer tech companies. So all of our engineers come from companies like Square and Google, Facebook, or Meta these days, and of course, companies like Airbnb.
Well, that is amazing. So I'd like to invite you back for a follow-up. What would I hear differently maybe a year from now?
I think a year from now, you'll see that we've really continued to invest in sort of this intake to procure product, and we're starting to build even more capabilities to support larger enterprises that we're now starting to work with, as well as better support for a lot of the cross-functional teams that procurement is really sort of shepherding through this process.
So for a Future 5, you have done so much in such a short time. And I have to tell you, the SIG members that have worked with you are raving about your company, absolutely raving. So that is a testimonial right there. I might have to be technology agnostic. They don't have to be. They have to make a choice. And the ones who have chosen you your company have been so thrilled with the experience. So I want to say congratulations. And I just hope that we can continue to watch you grow. This has been an amazing story. And so folks, I don't know if you know about Zip. If you don't know what you don't know, and you need to get to know them. This is Rajul Zaparte, who's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Zip. And this is a portion of the process that is so painful. why don't you look at Zip and give it a try? So, Rajul, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
No, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, believe me. And what a story you have too. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast through iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Want to nominate someone for an interview? Email us at info@sig.org.